You hear about them on the news all the time, right? GDP, unemployment, inflation. They can sound pretty abstract, maybe even a little dry, but they are, without a doubt, the three numbers that run our world. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and really understand what they mean and how they work together.
So let's just start with the biggest question of all. How do we even know if our economy is doing well? I mean, how do you take its pulse or check its temperature?
Well, the easiest way to think about it is to picture a car's dashboard. There are really just three main gauges that tell us almost everything we need to know about how the economic engine is running. And by the end of this, you'll know how to read them like a pro.
Okay, first up on our dashboard, the speedometer. This is our gross domestic product, or GDP. This is the gauge that tells us just how fast our economy is moving.
So what in the world is GDP? Let's break down that official definition, because there are a couple of super important phrases in there we need to focus on: final goods and in a country. We're going to start with final, because if you get this one concept, you'll avoid a huge common mistake.
It's all about avoiding something called double counting. Let's imagine a super simple economy that only makes cars. You have a steel company that makes and sells $100 worth of steel to a car company. Then, the car company uses that steel to build a car and sells it for $200. So, is the total output $300? Nope, because that $100 of steel is already baked into the price of the $200 car. GDP is smart. It only counts the final product, the car. Or, another way to look at it is by adding up the value added at each step. Both ways you get to $200, which is the actual GDP.
But hang on, there's a little bit of a wrinkle here. We need to know if our speedometer is going up because we're actually making more stuff or just because the price of everything went up. That's the crucial difference between nominal GDP and real GDP. Real GDP is the one that matters. It strips out the effects of inflation so we can see if we're actually more productive.
And this gets really fascinating when you start looking at technology. Take laptops, for instance. The actual price you pay in dollars has gone down over the years. But is today's laptop less valuable? No way. It's exponentially more powerful. So economists use this really clever method called hedonic pricing to account for that quality improvement. And get this, when they do that, they find that the real quality-adjusted price of a computer has been plummeting by an incredible 25% every single year.
Okay, let's move on to our second gauge. This one is the engine health light, and it's the unemployment rate. And this isn't just a number, it's about the human cost of a struggling economy and whether we're putting all of our talent to work.
So who actually counts as unemployed? You know, the official definition is probably a bit tighter than you think. To be officially unemployed, you can't have a job. But, and this is the key part, you have to be actively looking for one. That means people like full-time students, retirees, or stay-at-home parents, they aren't counted in that number. They're considered not in the labor force. And this leads us to a really important group: discouraged workers. These are folks who want a job, but they've just hit a wall and have given up looking. The moment they stop actively searching, poof, they drop out of the unemployment statistic. So that headline number you see on the news, it might not be telling the whole story. And we care so much about this number because of its deep personal impact. I mean, just look at this finding from a massive study in Germany. Losing your job causes a huge drop in happiness, and that feeling sticks around for years, even after you find a new job. It just goes to show you, this isn't just some abstract economic data point. It's a real measure of human well-being.
All right, let's get to our final gauge on the dashboard. This is the temperature gauge, which is inflation. This tells us if the economy is running at a nice, stable temperature or if it's starting to overheat, or maybe even get a little too cold.
So what is it, really? It's pretty simple. Inflation is just a sustained rise in the general price of stuff. The inflation rate is just how fast those prices are going up. And the opposite, when prices are consistently falling, that's called deflation. Now, to measure this, we've got two main tools. There's the GDP deflator, which looks at the prices of absolutely everything produced in the country, but the one you hear about all the time is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. That one is a little different. It tracks the prices of a specific basket of things that a typical family actually buys, so you can think of it as our best measure of the cost of living.
So why do we care so much about this temperature gauge? Well, because when inflation is too high or too unpredictable, it creates all kinds of problems. It can mess with people's savings, create uncertainty for businesses, and it can even push you into a higher tax bracket when your real income hasn't actually gone up. That's called bracket creep.
It's why most economists agree that the sweet spot, the perfect temperature, is a low and stable inflation rate, somewhere around 1 to 4%.
Okay, we've looked at all three gauges one by one. The speedometer, the engine light, the temperature gauge. But here's where it gets really powerful. They don't exist in a vacuum. They are all deeply connected, constantly influencing one another. To really know what's going on, you have to read the whole dashboard together.
So the first big connection is something called Okun's law, and this is the link between our speedometer, GDP, and our engine health light, unemployment.
And really, it's pretty intuitive. As a general rule, when GDP growth is high, when the economy is really moving, the unemployment rate tends to go down. That just makes sense, right? Businesses are making and selling more stuff, so they need to hire more people to do it.
The second key connection you should know about is called the Phillips curve. This one connects our engine health light, unemployment, to our temperature gauge, inflation.
Now this describes a classic trade-off. The idea is that when unemployment gets really, really low, the economy can start to overheat. There's tons of demand for goods and services, businesses might have to pay higher wages to attract workers, and that can start to push prices up across the board, leading to higher inflation. So GDP, unemployment, inflation. Together, these three gauges on our dashboard tell a powerful, interconnected story about the health of our economy right now. But that, of course, leads to the next big question. If these numbers tell the story of today, what is it that determines the story of tomorrow? What drives our economy's growth and stability in the long run? Well, that's a question for our next explainer.